The latest trailer for the Eternals has taken the MCU fandom by storm, seemingly crushing most apprehension or uncertainty that still may linger around the project. It's safe to say that many of those who weren't looking forward to the Eternals have likely changed their minds, or are at least having second thoughts regarding the film. But what exactly does this mean, and what can we expect from this brand new batch of heroes? Earlier on this channel, we published a video detailing some of the most prominent powers and abilities of not only the Eternals as a race, but many of the most powerful individual Eternals. This is an updated take on that video, focusing more in depth on the most prominent Eternals, complete with new information and more in-depth analysis based on the information we got from the trailer itself. So stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, as we take you through not only the inherent powers and abilities that each Eternal is likely set to have, but also the individual characteristics of the forefront Eternals. For this video, we will be exploring the comic lore and the on-page adaptations of these characters, meaning that the powers and abilities detailed in the comics may not necessarily receive perfectly copied representation in the movie, but that still remains to be seen. First off, let's cover some of the blanket abilities that nearly all the Eternals have in the comics, including flight, enhanced strength, and speed, telepathy, illusion, casting, and transmutation of organic and inorganic matter. They also have a particular affinity for energy manipulation, ranging from pulses and beams of energy that they can cast from their eyes or hands to what appear to be solid constructs within the trailers. Many of the Eternals have these abilities in varying degrees, but some are more gifted or experienced in one area than other, and this distribution of power is widely flexible. For instance, Eckardt seems to have a particular affinity for energy projection, flight, and physical combat, whereas an Eternal such as Sprite has been widely regarded as one of the strongest illusion casters of the group. Eternals also have the unique ability to maintain perfect control of their molecular physiology. They are able to mentally control each of their body's functions down to the atomic level, which allows for immensely powerful healing factors and virtual immortality. So with the general powers out of the way, let's explore some of the most prominent Eternals from the trailer and the cast list and explore some of their specialized personality traits and strongest features. Perhaps the star of this latest trailer is Eckardt, played by Richard Madden. Eckardt in the comics is widely regarded as one of the most powerful Eternals on Earth, second only to the father of Thena himself, the mighty Zuros. His most powerful abilities lie in his control and manipulation of cosmic energy, which in the trailer takes the form of concentrated lasers that he blasts from his eyes. He also possesses low-level psionic and matter manipulation abilities, including the ability to scan and read the superficial thoughts of most beings with weaker mental fortitude than himself, in addition to being able to cast mild illusions, but not nearly on the same level as some of the most gifted illusion casters of the group, again like Sprite. Eckardt appears to prefer a rather blunt method of combat and confrontation, putting his enhanced strength, speed, stamina, and durability on the forefront of a fight, despite being a telepath as well as an experienced telekinetic. Cersei, played by Gemma Chan, is one of the more unique Eternals, as Cersei is not only immensely powerful, but also a general pacifist. She seems to avoid violence on many occasions, not understanding the point of human brutality and warfare. But while she may not enjoy conflict, that doesn't mean that she's unprepared for it. Along with the baseline abilities of her brethren, including flight, enhanced physical characteristics, and cosmic energy manipulation, Cersei is also a gifted illusionist and telepath, having been able to bend the weak-minded to do her bidding via the use of hypnosis. Her telepathy and telekinesis is among the strongest of the Eternals, being able to move the objects around her with just her thoughts, as well as project the images in her mind to create some of the most convincing illusions of the Eternal race. Her illusions can incorporate all 5 human senses, allowing them to become incredibly lifelike and almost indistinguishable from the real thing. Kevin Feige and Gemma Chan have hinted that Cersei's take on heroism will make the audience question what it means to be a true hero, presumably hinting that they may be planning on leaning into her pacifist tendencies a bit more. Fastos, played by Brian Tyree Henry, is the Eternal who we see mourning the shattered table in the closing moments of the trailer. As one of the more melancholy Eternals, he generally believes life to be meaningless and often struggles to find purpose in his existence. He is one of the most gifted blacksmiths of the Eternals, devoting himself to crafting weapons and tools for his fellow comrades, commonly being confused in ancient Greece for Hephaestus, the god of the blacksmiths and forges. Even though he himself didn't like to fight, he was always present to ensure his brethren were sufficiently armed. Fastos has even been known to sit out wars and conflicts directly involving the Eternals due to his apathy towards violence, as well as being one of the most resilient of the Eternals. He is also one of the strongest, able to lift upwards of 25 tons, compared to the average Eternal who can only lift around 15. He is nearly impervious to pain, and on the rare occasion he is injured, his Eternal healing abilities are able to regenerate missing tissue and heal virtually any wound. While Fastos does have some minor psionic abilities, he chooses to use them not for illusion casting, but for levitation purposes, not only for himself, but for others. He does this by psionically manipulating the gravitational forces between atoms, allowing himself or others to become virtually weightless and achieve the ability of flight. Thena, played by Angelina Jolie, is commonly confused with Athena of the Greek pantheon. An Eternal with close personal connections to the actual Greek pantheon, Thena commonly acts as a diplomat between the Eternals and the Greek pantheon of gods, who is set to make her debut in Thor: Love and Thunder. She is shown to have a particular interest in solid light constructs, creating swords, shields, spears, and other weapons from strings of solidified light. Many, including ourselves on the channel, have theorized that this is actually a form of eldritch magic, much like the magic used by Doctor Strange and the sorcerers of Kamartaj. Given that the basis of Doctor Strange's powers revolve around the manipulation of various cosmic and interdimensional energies, it makes logical sense, but nothing has yet to be confirmed by Marvel concerning Thena's powers. She possessed thermo and photokinesis, able to manipulate photons to create light and heat on a whim, in addition to creating solid constructs. Thena is an incredibly adept hand-to-hand combat, who is unafraid to get up close and personal in conflicts. Ajax is an Eternal with known conflict among the group, as one of the leaders of the popular faction of Eternals in the comics. Set to be played by Salma Hayek, Ajax is a highly skilled warrior in his own right. Ajax in the comics fought in the Trojan War, as well as fought side by side with Thor against Dromadan. Ajax is the only Eternal who has the ability to communicate directly with the Celestials, which often promotes him to a leadership position among the Eternals in the comics. Many have theorized that this is what we see Ajax doing in the trailer, communicating with the Celestials, but this is Ajax's most unique ability to date. Next is Sprite, who is cursed to forever appear as an 11-year-old boy, unable to grow. Where many of the Eternals have an affinity for remaining stoic and focused on work, Sprite was much more carefree and oftentimes a bit of a trickster. Sprite has spent his time toying with humanity, inspiring the creation of William Shakespeare's Puck and J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. He also has the ability to create incredibly convincing illusions, and is oftentimes cited as one of the Eternals' most powerful illusion casters. With centuries of practice under his belt, his illusions are unique for the fact that they can incorporate all 5 senses, similar to Cersei, only on a much more potent scale, making them virtually indistinguishable from the real world. These illusions are so incredibly lifelike that those trapped inside oftentimes cannot tell the real world from the false one. The Black Knight, played by Game of Thrones star Kit Harington, seems to be a bit more of an outlier, as in the comics he isn't an Eternal, but rather a human by the name of Dane Whitman. In the comics, Whitman inherited his uncle Garrett's castle, and would later discover that his uncle once held the mantle of the villainous Black Knight. Wielding the Ebony Blade, a sword carved from the meteor of Merlin, Whitman would set out to infiltrate the Masters of Evil under the guise of carrying on his uncle's legacy. In actuality, however, his true intent was to dismantle the group from the inside out. His battle would be far from over, as the Ebony Blade would slowly strip Whitman of his sanity, causing him to eventually encounter a fake Savage Steel and beating him nearly to death, losing an eye in the process. In the movie, he is evidently dating Cersei, and is aware to some degree of her Eternal heritage and story. It is implied by quotes by Harington that we will see the Black Knight in action at some point in the movie, wielding the Ebony Blade on the big screen for the first time. Druid is one of the craftiest and often most unpredictable Eternals. He is one of the most powerful telepaths of the Eternals and has a particular affinity for the manipulation of fear and nightmares. Druid uses his telepathic abilities to read the minds of others, locate their darkest fears, and use those fears to manipulate them into doing his bidding. The threats of these fears are so great that his victims rarely are able to resist his will. using these waking nightmares to manipulate a person's action. This skill also extends to overriding control of a person's body and limiting brainwashing capabilities, making him one of the most difficult Eternals to combat. He also has a history of direct conflict with the rest of the Eternals, primarily his cousin Ickardt, and manipulating conflict to better serve his own agendas. This means that rarely he can be trusted, as he's known to play multiple sides of a conflict. Gilgamesh is among the strongest Eternals in the physical sense, and the only Eternal to physically rival the power of Ickardt. At the beginning of his life, he wasn't aware of his heritage, nor his status of an Eternal. He spent his life traveling to distant lands on Earth, conquering tyrants, overthrowing kingdoms, and battling the most dangerous earthbound beasts on his quest for an eternal life. Human legends commonly confuse him for Hercules or Samson, given his sheer strength and force of will. He is a known friend of Aeneas, Achilles, and King David, roommate of Hercules for a time, as well as a warrior of the Roman Empire. His thirst for adventure is seemingly unquenchable, leading him into direct affiliation and allyship with the Avengers for a time in the comics. Kingo in the comics is Japanese, and spent his life in feudal Japan as a samurai. However, in the more modern era is a famous movie star. In the movie, he is going to be played by Kumali Nanjiani, seemingly deviating from the comic's origin as a samurai. Though Kingo possesses the standard of powers of the rest of the Eternals, he often chooses to fight using the ways of the samurai, neglecting to use his powers and instead using his samurai training instead, as he is a master swordsman and incredibly gifted hand-to-hand combatant. But anyway, my friends, these are the Eternals. What do you think of the latest trailer for the Eternals? And are you excited to see the Eternals on the big screen? Also, which of them are you the most excited to see? Personally, I think the powers of Ickardt are really compelling, and I can't wait to see him battle deviants and other threats. As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel, and if you made it to the end, I truly appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.